Chapter 30. I visited the Heights, but I haven't seen her since she left. When I stopped by to inquire about her, Joseph stood at the door and refused to let me in. He claimed Mrs. Linton was busy and the master was out. Zillah has shared some insights into their lives. Otherwise, I'd scarcely know who was alive and who had passed. She finds Catherine proud and doesn't like her, as I can tell from her remarks. My young lady sought some help from her when she first arrived, but Mr. Heathcliff instructed her to mind her own affairs and let his daughter-in-law fend for herself. Zillah, being a narrow-minded and selfish woman, readily agreed. Catherine displayed a child's irritation at being overlooked, retaliating with disdain, thereby securing my informant as an enemy just as effectively as if she had committed a grave offence. About 6 weeks ago, and shortly before your arrival, I had an extended conversation with Zillah when we met on the moor, and this is what she shared with me. The first thing Mrs. Linton did upon reaching the Heights, she recounted, was to rush upstairs without even offering a good evening to me or Joseph. She locked herself in Linton's room and stayed there until morning. Then, while the master and Earnshaw were having breakfast, she came into the house and, trembling, and asked if the doctor could be summoned because her cousin was very ill. "We know that," Heathcliff replied, "but his life isn't worth a penny, and I won't spend a penny on him." "But I don't know what to do," she said. "If no one helps me, he'll die." "Leave the room," the master shouted, "and don't let me hear another word about him. No one here cares what happens to him. If you do, then act as his nurse. If not, lock him up and leave him." Then she started pestering me, and I told her I'd had enough trouble with the bothersome thing. See, we each had our duties, and hers was to tend to Linton. Mr. Heathcliff instructed me to leave that task to her. How they managed together, I can't quite say. I imagine he was often restless, sighing and lamenting day and night, while she got hardly any rest. Her pale face and weary eyes were evidence enough. Sometimes she'd wander into the kitchen, looking lost and as if she desperately wanted to ask for help. But I couldn't go against the master's orders. I never dared defy him, Mrs. Dean. Even though I felt it was wrong not to call for Kenneth, it wasn't my place to advise or complain, so I always kept my distance. A couple of times after we'd gone to bed, I'd open my door and find her sitting on the stairs, crying. I'd quickly close my door again, afraid that I might be compelled to intervene. I did feel sorry for her, truly, but I didn't want to risk losing my job. You understand? Finally, one night, she came straight into my room, startling me out of my senses by saying, "Tell Mr. Heathcliff that his son is dying. I'm certain of it this time. Get up immediately and tell him." After delivering this message, she disappeared again. He'd lay there for 15 minutes, listening and trembling. The house was silent. "She's mistaken," I told myself. He's moved past it. I didn't need to disturb them, so I started to drift off. But my sleep was interrupted again by the sharp ringing of the bell, the only one we have installed specifically for Linton. The master called out to me, asking what was going on, and to let them know he wouldn't tolerate that noise again. I delivered Catherine's message. He muttered curses under his breath, then emerged with a lit candle and headed to their room. I followed. Mrs. Heathcliff was sitting by the bedside, her hands resting on her knees. Her father-in-law approached, held the light to Linton's face, examined him, and touched him. Then he turned to her. "Now, Catherine," he said, "how do you feel?" She remained silent. "How do you feel, Catherine?" he asked again. "He's safe, and I'm free," she replied. "I should feel well, but," she continued, unable to hide her bitterness, "you left me to battle death alone for so long that all I feel, and see, is death. I feel like death." And she looked the part, too. I offered her a little wine. Hareton and Joseph, awakened by the commotion and the sound of footsteps, had overheard our conversation from outside and now entered the room. Joseph seemed quite pleased about the boy's departure, while Hareton appeared somewhat troubled. Though, truth be told, he was more captivated by Catherine than concerned about Linton. The master instructed him to return to bed, as we had no need of his assistance. Later, he had Joseph move the body to his own chamber and directed me to go back to mine, leaving Mrs. Heathcliff alone. The next morning, he sent me to inform her that she needed to come down for breakfast. She had undressed and seemed on the verge of sleep, claiming she felt unwell, which did not surprise me. I relayed this to Mr. Heathcliff, who responded, "Let her be until after the funeral. Check on her occasionally to provide what she needs, and inform me as soon as she seems to improve." According to Zillah, Cathy remained upstairs for 2 weeks. Zillah visited her twice daily and would have shown more warmth, but her attempts at kindness were met with prideful resistance. Heathcliff went up once to present her with Linton's will. Linton had left all his possessions, including what had been hers, to his father. The poor soul had been coerced or persuaded into this during her week's absence when his uncle passed away. As for the lands, being a minor, he had no authority over them. However, Mr. Heathcliff has taken possession of the property through his wife's rights, and likely his own as well, presumably in a legal manner. Regardless, Catherine, lacking both money and allies, is in no position to challenge his hold. "No one," said Zillah, "ever came near her door except for me that one time, and no one inquired about her. The first time she ventured downstairs was on a Sunday afternoon. She had cried out when I brought her meal, saying she couldn't endure the cold any longer. So I informed her that the master was heading to Thrushcross Grange, and neither Earnshaw nor I would prevent her from coming down. As soon as she heard Heathcliff's horse trot away, she appeared, dressed in black, with her yellow curls pulled back behind her ears, as plainly as a Quaker's. She couldn't comb them out. "Joseph and I usually attend chapel on Sundays," Mrs. Dean explained, "since the kirk has no minister now, and they refer to the Methodists or Baptists and place in Gimmerton as a chapel. I can't recall which. Joseph had gone," she continued, "but I thought it wise to stay home. Young people benefit from an elder's supervision, and Hareton, despite his shyness, isn't exactly a paragon of good manners. I informed him that his cousin might join us, and she was accustomed to seeing the Sabbath observed, so he ought to set aside his guns and indoor projects while she was present. He blushed at the news and glanced at his hands and clothes. The train oil and gunpowder were quickly hidden from view." I could see he intended to spend time with her, and I could tell by his demeanour that he wanted to make a good impression. So, with a laugh I wouldn't dare let out in front of the master, I offered to help him if he wanted, teasing him about his awkwardness. He became sullen and started to curse. "Now, Mrs. Dean," Zillah continued, noticing my disapproval of her tone, "you probably think your young lady is too refined for Mr. Hareton. And maybe you're right. But I must admit, I'd love to see her brought down a notch. What good will all her education and elegance do her now? She's as poor as you or I. Poorer, I'd wager. You're thrifty, and I'm doing my best to get by." Hilton accepted Zillah's help, and she managed to coax him into a better mood. So, when Catherine arrived, he tried to be pleasant, almost forgetting her past insults, according to the housekeeper. "Miss walked in," she recounted, "as cold as ice and as proud as a princess. I stood up here and offered her my seat in the armchair, but no, she turned her nose up at my gesture. Earnshaw got up too and invited her to sit by the fire, insisting she must be freezing. I've been freezing for a month or more," she replied, emphasizing the words with as much disdain as she could muster. And then she fetched a chair for herself, placing it at a distance from both of us. Once she felt the warmth seep into her bones, she began to survey her surroundings and noticed a collection of books perched on the dresser. Instantly, she was on her feet, reaching up to grab them, but they were just out of reach. Her cousin, observing her efforts for a moment, finally mustered the courage to assist her. She held out her dress, and he filled it with the first books he could grasp. This was a significant step for the boy. She didn't offer any thanks, yet he felt a sense of satisfaction that she accepted his help. Emboldened, he stood behind her as she examined the books, even daring to lean in and point out the illustrations that caught his eye. Her dismissive flick of the page from his finger didn't deter him. Instead, he stepped back slightly, choosing to watch her rather than the book. She continued her search, flipping through pages, absorbed in her quest for something to read. Gradually, his focus shifted entirely to the study of her thick, silky curls. He couldn't see her face, and she was oblivious to his gaze. Perhaps not fully aware of his actions, drawn like a moth to a flame, he moved from merely watching to touching. He reached out and gently stroked one of her curls, as tenderly as if it were a delicate bird. Her reaction was as if he had plunged a knife into her neck. She spun around, startled and indignant. "Get away this instant! How dare you touch me?" "Why are you stopping there?" she exclaimed, her voice dripping with disdain. "I can't stand you. I'll head back upstairs if you come any closer." Mr. Hareton stepped back, looking as awkward as possible. He settled quietly into the seat, while she continued flipping through her books for another half hour. Eventually, Earnshaw leaned over and whispered to me, "Could you ask her to read to us, Zillah? I'm tired of doing nothing. I really would like. I could enjoy hearing her. Don't say it's my idea. Just ask on your own." "Mr. Hareton would like you to read to us, Mom," I said right away. "He'd appreciate it very much." She frowned, and, looking up, replied, "Mr. Hareton, and all of you, should understand that I reject any pretense of kindness you hypocritically offer. I despise you and have nothing to say to any of you, when I would have given my life for a kind word, and just to see one of your faces, you all stayed away. But I won't complain to you. I'm down here because of the cold, not to entertain you or enjoy your company." "What could I have done?" Earnshaw began. "How was I at fault?" "Oh, you're an exception," Mrs. Heathcliff replied. "I never missed such a nuisance as you." "But I offered more than once," he said, his temper rising at her sharpness. "I asked Mr. Heathcliff to let me stay up for you." "Be quiet. I'd rather go outside, or anywhere, than have your unpleasant voice in my ear," she retorted. Hareton muttered that she could go to hell for all he cared, and slinging his gun over his shoulder, he returned to his usual Sunday activities. He spoke freely now, and she soon decided to retreat to her solitude. But the frost had set in, and despite her pride, she was forced to join our company more and more. However, I made sure there was no further mockery of my good nature. Ever since, I've been as aloof as she is, and she has no admirer among us, nor does she deserve one. For if anyone says the slightest thing to her, she'll recoil without a regard for anyone. She'll snap at the master himself, and practically dares him to strike her. And the more hurt she gets, the more spiteful she becomes. Initially, upon hearing this from Zillah, I resolved to leave my position, find a cottage, and have Catherine come live with me. But Mr. Heathcliff would no more allow that than he would let Hareton have his own house. I see no solution at the moment, unless she could remarry, but arranging that is beyond my scope. Thus concluded Mrs. Dean's tale. Despite the doctor's predictions, I'm quickly regaining my strength. Although it's only the second week of January, I plan to ride out on horseback in a day or two, heading over to Wuthering Heights to inform my landlord that I intend to spend the next 6 months in London. If he wishes, he can start looking for another tenant to take over after October. I wouldn't endure another winter here for anything.